Welcome to Six in the Six, episode 16. Today I am humbled, honored, and very grateful to have a soccer legend, Tracey Leone. Welcome, Tracey.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we were talking right before we started. I think this is a good example of if you want to try something, just ask and see what happens. It's I was surprised but extremely thankful you accepted my offer for this. So again, to say you're a legend in the game, I don't think I overstated that. Just so people know who are watching that may not be as familiar with soccer, Tracey's a former women's national team player where you won a World Cup, I believe, as a player, and then again, roughly a decade later, as a coach of the under 19 team. That had to be pretty cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. And it was funny, kind of the parallels between the under 19 team and our 91 team. Going through it the first time. We had a set of amazing forwards, just like on our 1991 team, that were kind of highly publicized. And so it was kind of neat actually to see the parallels, even though it was about a decade later.
Right. And at that point, even with that decade gap, it was still the first time I believe anyone had accomplished that. So that had to be another great feeling. Current Colby coach, Kirby College up in Maine, and you came there from I think an assistant stint with Team New Zealand and a handful of other NCAA coaching spots, and at one point won a Coach of the Year in 2014. So when I said legend, I don't think I overstated this.
Oh, well, there's definitely people that have done a lot more than I've done, but I really appreciate it. And, the game has been really great to me. And I've been super blessed with kind of my journey and how soccer's intertwined with that and the people that I know and have met along the way. And it always takes a village, right? So
Absolutely.
as anything on their own. And, I've been lucky to work with amazing coaches and amazing players for amazing bosses and play for the best coach in the world in Anson Dorrance. So I've been truly blessed.
And that's a great segue with your UNC time into why I reached out. And on my last episode of the podcast, we were talking about players, how they could display leadership traits while embracing whatever role they were currently in. And that made me think of something I had seen at some point. I don't know if I heard Anson or read something from him where the value the UNC coaching staff and Anson put in you on your senior year, or is that on you in your senior year, when you had a preseason season ending injury and they still made you a captain on that team. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it probably was I had a couple injuries at the end of my college playing career. So my true senior year, I broke my foot about a week before preseason began. And so I had to get a surgery, and then I came in and I had to redshirt that year. So, I was going to practice, I was going to games. I actually was the ball girl in the Final Four. um,
Final
because
four.
I was healthy enough to run around, and the ball girls I had gotten actually were too young. And so they said, Tracey, will you be a ball girl? I was like, sure. So you can see me running around chasing balls. And then my fifth year, I began playing and I injured didn't require surgery, and it wasn't a severe injury. I tore my MCL. So I was out for a decent bulk of the season and then came back for the playoffs. And so that was kind of my stint. So I was in and out a little bit the last couple of years of my college playing days. But, I think it's important for everyone to realize, regardless of whether you're playing, whether you're injured, whether you're starting every minute, not at all, playing, not playing, that, you're an important contributor to the team, and that you have a responsibility to that team if you're going to play for the team, to do all that you can for the team's success. And I know for the national team, I was a reserve player. With the international game, there's only 3 subs that are made, if that, in the games. And so being a reserve player, you found yourself in a position where you were not playing in games very frequently. And when we won the 1991 World Cup, I know that I plus the other reserve players on that team felt that I put an equal amount into the success of that team as anybody else. It was just in a different way. But it was also as important as anyone else. And so I truly didn't feel any different when that whistle blew and we were declared world champions than Michelle Akers, who was one of the stars of our team, because I think it's important for people to realize every day in practice, and I know we took this mindset with the national team, that we were preparing them for games. And we viewed practice as our games. We're like, this is our game.
Exactly.
And we have to get this group ready to play on the world stage. And we also need to prepare ourselves so that in the event of an injury or in the event that a sub needs to be made, we're ready to do our part. And so typically when you help yourself, you're going to help this team. And if you help the team, you're going to help yourself, And so we had a great group of reserve players that I think played a valuable role in that team winning, even if we didn't get a lot of minutes on the field.
Well, and I think you said something. I really love that you said you're preparing the entire team, maybe not just the starters, to go out there and be successful. And one of the things I think when we talk about confidence and maybe people's inner voice starting to eat away at them in those situations, that taking a step to do something, especially if it's serving others, is a great way to keep your confidence up. So I love that statement. A lot of times we talk about how it is difficult to level up in the game. You might be the star at your high school, and then all of a sudden you're at the bottom of the rung in college. Same thing jumping up into the pro levels, and certainly when you get to the national team level. I definitely feel the mental aspect is equivalent in that, and yet maybe doesn't get as much focus. What kind of scale in mentality you were just talking about on that role player did you see in people getting up to that international level? Could some not deal with it? Could some barely?
Well, it's funny, and everyone would say this. I'm like, I've had this experience of not playing, and I know people. Their first probably inclination is to say, "Oh yeah, but that was for the national team," and you're like, "Yeah, but it doesn't change the fact that you're a player who's been training and who would love to be on the field." Like that just goes without saying. I think, regardless of the level that you're playing at, that doesn't actually. That's kind of irrelevant, to be honest with you, because you're still wanting to be on the field. I mean, you're still the same human being, regardless of what team. And so I think it's human nature to kind of have that feeling. And so I do think it's challenging. It's a challenging role to play, but I think it's one that if you embrace it and you think about it with a positive mindset, that then you realize it's a really important role. Actually, I think people devalue it and think, oh, I'm not as important, or I'm not as valued, or I'm not as much of a contributing member to a team. And my thought is, you're equally as important. You're equally as much of a contributor because of the team aspect, and everyone has a role to play that's important. And if you embrace that and you realize that it is important, even though it might be difficult on you personally, as you mentioned, I think if you feel that you've put everything into the team success and then you see that happen on the field, you feel fulfilled. And you can let go of, the personal struggle maybe of playing a difficult role, because you realize, one, that it's important, two, that you've had a big part in the success of the team, and three, that you got through playing a difficult role and did it really, really well. And so to me, that's a big, I think, testament of you as a person, of you as a teammate. And that's what you're going to be remembered for. And that's kind of the legacy that you can leave. Very few people remember scores of games. Every once in a while, you'll bring up moments of games that you'll laugh about. But really, what people remember down the road is what kind of person you were, what kind of teammate you were, um, you know, what impact you had on the team and whatever role you played. And so those are the stories that you tell, and you're just as much a part of it as any other member of the team, regardless of what role you play.
I couldn't agree more. I love the one point you said that you learned that you could get through those tough situations. That may be the most important to me life lesson out of all of that, which is applicable anywhere. And
Well, I think too, it's important, like in life, one of the qualities that I think it helps you in your job, in your relationships, completely outside of soccer is to be selfless. And that role teaches you that. That role teaches you that you have to put in just as much time, just as much effort. I knew I had to do that just to make the team. Because so my options, and this is what people have to realize, well, you can make the team and play this role, or you could be not on the team at all.
right.
And my thought is, I would die to be on this team. I mean, I would give my left arm to be on this team. And so, you're working towards that. And I felt if you can step outside yourself and realize how lucky you are and how fortunate you are to be a part of this unit, then I think you can step back into yourself and say, all right, I can embrace whatever role I need to because this team is that important to me. And you'll see that go into your life completely outside of soccer. That's what the beauty of sports is. It helps you grow as a person, and it helps you be successful in so many areas outside of your life. And so when you're challenged and when you face adversity is really when the true colors come out of a person, not when things are going great and the sun is
Right.
shining and everything else. And so I think, you have an opportunity. And I think that's what people can view it like. You kind of flip that mindset. I have an opportunity to display this. It's not a bad thing. It's a positive thing. I have an opportunity to show what my team means to me. And I'm going to do that to the best of my ability. And I'm going to embrace whatever the coach deems my role to be, and help my team.
Yeah, and you can tell a lot of times you can look at a competition going on, whether it could be on a pitch, it could be off a pitch, where your team, no matter what role they're in, is cheering wildly and that energy's up. And most times those are the underdogs earning the win over someone ranked higher, whatever, in whatever situation that is. So I spot on for sure.
Well, I can remember many times the team that was playing out there would say, thank you so much. You helped me get through this, or you helped me track that player, because you were cheering for me and I was able to dig deeper. You built my confidence just that little bit that might have helped me, slide tackle a player to save, a ball from going out for a corner or something. So, I think people don't realize the impact that you can have, on your teammates from the sideline. And the other thing I think that's really important in this is just accountability. And I know we've talked a lot about this here at Colby, just within our team. And I think accountability is a big trait that can be overlooked at times. And so what happens is someone that is playing a role that maybe they'd like to change, they're kind of looking outward and they're, oh, it's the coach. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's this. And, sometimes parents can kind of jump on that bandwagon too. And what I would say from a parent standpoint, which I'm also a parent, is it's a great opportunity for you to teach your child to look inward instead of outward and be like, okay, there's a reason for this. The coach is making this decision. They see you every day in practice. Let's talk about ways that you can try and improve your role. Or go see the coach and say, what can I do? What can I do to try and get some playing time? Or what can I do to start? And frame it in that way and really view it that way. And so I think from a parent standpoint, instead of, you know, teaching your child to blame everything else, I think they need to teach your child to look at themselves and self evaluate and say, all right, what are areas that you can get better in to try and help your situation? And I think parents miss the boat sometimes, that that's a great opportunity. I think, we all have the parent blinders because we love our child so much, that sometimes you just have to widen those and realize that it's a great opportunity to help your child grow as a person through this adversity. Use it to help them grow instead of using it to, to blame other things outside of, you know, what's really happening.
Right. And I think as a father of twin daughters, I certainly remember those times where the Papa Bear instinct kicked in, and you were quick to be like, "Well, it can't be you," and it must. But the thing, back to the confidence thing, when you teach that, and when when you find yourself in adversity, talking about what I can do to get out, or what I can learn, or things like that, you start building on that confidence again, and kind of that self-image, because you're doing something and not sitting around playing the victim all day.
Exactly. And, this is life, like life is just not, going to be running through the flowers and the sunshine all the time. There are going to be struggles, and there are going to be things that you have to get through. Sorry,
Yeah.
that you have to get through. And as a parent and as the player, if you can view it as an opportunity instead of viewing it, as you said, playing the victim, or getting kind of on the hamster wheel of negativity, you can really utilize that, to really grow as a person and to find out really what you're made of. So, I completely agree. And then it's cyclical, because then that helps give you confidence. That when you realize that you've done something so selfless to help a teammate or to help your team, and you've team before myself, you've put the needs of the team above your individual desires, you feel a lot of fulfillment in that, a lot of fulfillment, because you knew and know that you've been an exemplary teammate. And I think that goes a long way. And I think people don't realize the value of that sometimes, because you get wrapped up in the emotion of it all. And again, I think, just from a coaching standpoint, I've been in coaching a long time. I'm also a parent now. Um, I think if parents can view these types of things as opportunities to help their child, then they're really going to help their child grow in quite a few ways. And there's opportunities all around that you can utilize in such a good way if you can get out of that, kind of negative space of the emotion that maybe you or even the parent might be feeling at that moment.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, boy, the way we've been talking about embracing your role, who wouldn't want this, right? But I think, back to an earlier comment, when everything's good, you're like, oh yeah, I'll embrace my role, no problem, everyone should, and then all of a sudden you're on the other side of that coin, and it gets a little more difficult. So even though we might recognize we want this, being human in our emotions and our feelings and things like that, how what kind of emotions went through your head, with your injuries, and you had to all of a sudden embrace a different role, either short term or long term? What did you have to fight through to get back to a good spot?
Well, and I'm definitely not saying it's not challenging, and that it's not hard, but I don't know if you've ever heard the quote, it's the hard that makes it good.
I love that.
It's like, can you persevere, and can you be relentless in whatever life gives you, and kind of use it kind of as a competition, can I win this? Can I win this moment? Can I win this day? And there's challenges. I mean, you want to be out on the field, and sometimes as a player, if you're injured, or if you're not injured, there's things that happen on the field that bonds those players together. And if you're not out there, sometimes you might feel like you're missing out. And that's where you can make up for that by cheering for your teammates, by ingraining yourself. Because I think sometimes when people are down, again, whether they're not playing or whether they're injured, which are really two different things, you can remove yourself. And to me, that's the worst thing you can do. But it's common to remove yourself because you're emotional. Sometimes you might want attention that you're not getting, for whatever reason, you remove yourself. And to me, you want to jump in there more. You want to be more involved. You want to make sure that you stay engaged with this team, because you're not getting that on the field. So you got to find ways to do it outside of the field. I think when you're dealing with an injury, it's a different challenge because you're also rehabbing your injury. You're trying to get healthy. If you have a severe injury, that can be somewhat painful physically. It can be draining mentally. You're putting in extra time to go to practice, but also rehab. So there's some different challenges that you're dealing with. But the way I always viewed it was, this is one day closer to me playing. Every day is one day closer for me to get to where I want to be. And a couple of stories. When I both with my knee injury and my foot injury, I rode the fan bike. It's called the fan bike, and it's a very hard, very hard bike. That it's arms and legs, and there's a lot of resistance. And I always found, and still to this day, that this bike replicates running and soccer and the demands the best of anything that you can do. And I would prop my bad leg up and I would ride with my good leg and the two arms. And I used to always joke, I would walk in there and I would kick the bike because it's brutal. I mean, it's misery. It is physically, it's almost worse than running. Actually, it's almost harder than running. Plus you're in one place and everything else is different.
Right.
But the physical feeling of it to me is harder than running in some ways. And I used to always say, I kick it when I go in and I kiss it when I leave, because I knew at the end, when I was done with the workout, that this was going to be the reason that I was going to come back quickly when I was ready to play. This was going to be the reason that I was going to be just as fit as when I left with my injury. And I think it's important to know, for players to know, that you still have that responsibility to do something that you can do, even if you're injured. A lot of people go, oh, I can't do this. Oh, I can't do this. Well, you might not be able to play soccer, but can you swim? Can you bike? Can you do core work? Can you lift? I mean, I used to hop on one leg with my bad foot up and head juggle with somebody, um,
Right.
what can you do? And then what that does is it puts that challenging emotion, it channels it into work. And then you feel better. You're like, okay, I did something this day. I did something physical. I feel good. I feel like I've improved. And I feel like I'm one step closer to playing.
Right.
And
Whether you feel like it or not, yeah, you have two choices: either get better, like you said, and get back to where you want to be, or choose to stay where you are.
exactly. And I think people get and it's challenging. Don't get me wrong. You're maybe a little down. You want to be somewhere else. But if you can channel that emotion, and put it to work, and in a more positive way, saying, okay, what can I control? I mean, I can't control that I can't play right now, but so do I just stay in that lane? Do I just stay in that space, or do I leave it and go, what can I do? All right, I can get on the bike, I can get in the pool. And inevitably, when you're done, you feel better. All that negative emotion has been released. You know that you've done something. You feel just physically better, mentally better, and you can deal with it better. And so I think it's important for people to realize that that's actually important, that they do that, to be able to deal with the struggle of being injured, which is hard. It really is hard. But again, this is the hand that life dealt you. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do with that? And once you get to the end of that and you triumph over that and you're back where you want to be, you feel amazing. You feel you can conquer anything. You know that you've triumphed over this adversity. So that's going to help you later in life with something else. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
When you have a player on your roster that's maybe struggling with this role acceptance for whatever reason, um, what kind of experiences are you able to draw on from your own past that kind of help them out?
Well, I think as a coach, it is important to continue to make sure that you voice how much you value everyone and everyone's role in the team. And, if someone is struggling, you want to seek them out and say, how are you doing? You look down today. Are you doing okay? Um, maybe it's, after a game or a practice, publicly being able to say, hey, The players on the bench were amazing today. We had a couple players at Colby who had knee injuries and couldn't play, and they helped every day before the game, set balls up for the warm up, helped all through the warm up, and were the kind of behind the scene things that I appreciated and realized, but maybe not everybody else even realized that they were doing it.
Right.
So I really tried to make a point to tell them, thank you so much. You don't realize how much this is helping. This is helping me. And so again, I think even with their attitudes with the team, they were amazing. You have to view it as an opportunity. And if you view it as an opportunity instead of as an injury, or instead of I'm not playing the role that I want to play, it frames it in a different way. And it allows you, better allows you, I guess, to be able to handle it and do something good with it.
Absolutely. And I, to your point earlier about, whether you feel like it or not, doing the fan bike or whatever it was, I mean, it pays back. So even, that selfish giving from not in your role, as we talked about, that's going to come back to them, whether it's a life lesson or what have you.
Well, yeah. And, I remember coming back from my senior year when I'd hurt my knee. Um, I came back, and the player that was playing the position that I had been starting in was playing amazing, you know, great friend of mine too. And so I met with Anson, my coach, and he said, well, listen, Pam is playing amazing at left midfielder. And I said, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't move her. You know what I mean? Like, she was playing amazing. And he said, so what do you think about playing left back? And I said, I'll play anywhere you want me to play. I mean, I'll play anywhere. And he said, okay, we'll consider you there. You're going to be with the reserve team, and you're going to have to work your way back in. And I said, no problem. I mean, I agree. I think that that's the way that it should be, just because I was starting when I got injured and I was out for 6 weeks or whatever, there's no rite of passage for me to think I should just walk in there and pick up where I left off. I need to get back out there and earn it. And so I played with the reserve team, earned my way back in, and played a different position, and had a great time, and our team went on to win the national championship. So I just think it's so important to really prioritize how you handle things, to your coaches, to your teammates, to your parents, and most importantly to yourself, because you're the one who has to look at yourself in the mirror every day and say, did I handle this right? And if you can say yes, then you're on the right path, and if you say no at times, which sometimes you might, we're human beings, and we're going to make mistakes, we're going to be overcome with emotion, we're going to succumb to that at times for sure, then you just realize it and you get back on track, because that will happen too. You have your bad days. And so, you just want to realize that. And I think a lot of people stay in that moment. They don't realize it. And so they don't get back on the right track. They just stay on the negative path, and then all of a sudden, you find yourself collectively as a team, but individually really behind. So
Yeah, it's so important to, when you recognize you're heading down that negative path, switch gears quickly. You may be on a different path now, but at least you pulled out of the bad one quick.
well, what's funny is I remember at Carolina, I'd gone in with the national team the first event, and it was still early in the national team kind of history, and I had played a decent amount, and so I was very excited. I was invited to the next event, which you're kind of living event to event. So anytime you're invited in, you're pretty much the luckiest person in the world, right? So working hard, I go into the next event, and this was the time when Mia Hamm, Christine Lilly, Julie Foudy, Carla Overbeck, Joy Fawcett were now added to this team. And I found myself as a pure reserve player, like overnight, because Christine Lilly was, one of the greatest players to ever put on the U.S. jersey. And now she's playing left midfielder, and that's where I played. And she's amazing. So I found myself quickly going from getting a decent amount of time to being a reserve player. And so I remember saying to myself, this is the right decision, first of all. Like, she is way better than I am. So you have to realize that. You have to put yourself, take yourself out of it and go, all right, this decision's the right decision. But I remember going home and saying, I need to get better. I need to get better. I need to get better. So I was training really hard. And I found myself, because I wanted to get better so badly, that I actually was getting more frustrated when I was playing. I wasn't having as much fun. Um, I was competitive, but I was almost going in the wrong direction competitively, kind of
Right.
like it was almost like my best friend was also my worst enemy. And I it was weird because I knew what was happening, but I was having trouble changing that until a friend came up to me, and we just got done playing, and she came up and said, "What is wrong with you?" I said, "What do you mean?" And I knew exactly what she meant, actually, but I
Right.
said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, you're not having as much fun. You're kind of being crazy out there. What is wrong with you?" And I almost needed her to say something and kind of shake me a little bit, even though I knew what was happening. That's what was so weird. I just couldn't get out of it almost. And her bringing it up to me, like, kind of hit me in the head a little bit. And it also helped me, we talked about it a little bit, and it literally flipped. And the next day I felt back to myself. And oddly, I wasn't getting any better the way that I was.
Right.
Once I got back to, kind of being a normal human being, enjoying the game, which was really what I always relied on, um, to get better, then I found myself back on the right track. And so a friend is the one that got me back on. And again, that's the value of having a teammate that's looking after you, and that cares enough about you to say, listen, kind of shake me a little bit. And I have a lot to thank her for doing that, because if she hadn't done it, I even though I knew was happening, I don't know that I could have gotten out of it on my own. And who knows where I would have ended up. So it's funny, sometimes you need other people to kind of shake you and make you realize, hey, you know, you're being crazy, or this, you need to change this, and I think it takes a lot of courage for someone to say that, because a lot of people are afraid to maybe do that with a friend. But to me, it's the best thing that you can do. And so that got me back on track, and that was really important.
Yeah, and I think you said it takes courage from the friend. I think from the recipient too. You have to embrace being humble and some humility, and some level of transparency as well, to not get your barbs out as soon as somebody says something, and kind of be able to learn from that.
Yeah, it's easy to get really defensive. And you know it was interesting because so much of when you're bringing that up on the other side is your approach. How do you broach that subject with someone? And this is a life lesson, because it's going to happen with a friend, with a partner, with your boss. Like, it's going to happen many times in your life. So, and a great practice for that. And for her to be as direct as she was actually the best way she could have done it in that particular situation. If it was different, she might have handled it in a different way, and that would have been a better way. But
Right.
for her to be like, what is wrong with you? I kind of I literally needed a smack in the face, so to speak, figuratively. I needed someone to bonk me over the head, and her direct statement, did that. And I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Tracey, I want to be very respectful of your time. Um, is there any last words of advice you would perhaps tell your, let's 13, 14-year-old self, in terms of, finding yourself in a role you didn't enjoy, and how to stay through it and get to, where your future self is?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say, first, appreciate what you have. Appreciate what you have. I think people, when you get caught up in your day to day, it's very easy to lose that, to lose sight of that. And, to be a part of a team, to play a sport that you love, you got to appreciate that opportunity every day, every day. And I think a lot of people appreciate it when it's over. Like, when you're done playing, you're like, oh, I so appreciate it. The secret is to appreciate it while you're doing it. And so, you want to appreciate every day that you have this opportunity to play this beautiful game. And it could be another sport, it could be music, whatever it is. You should appreciate that opportunity to the fullest. To me, that's probably first and foremost. And the second thing is, you know view everything as an opportunity, an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to get better, as a person, as a player, as a teammate, as a human, whatever that might be. Usually it's all of those things, but, frame everything in the right way as an opportunity, and always look inward. Look inward. What can I do better? What can I improve? Instead of looking outward, because typically people that look outward don't end up improving what needs to be improved to be out there in the first place. And so,
Right.
look inward and be accountable, like be accountable, because all of these things are going to add up, so that when you're ready to go on to the next stage of your life, you're going to be ready to win that game too. you know
Right.
um to win each day. And so, be accountable yourself and look inward, and try and make any perceived negative into a positive. I used to always kind of say that, it's not a negative, it's you're perceiving it as a negative. So make every perceived negative and find something positive from that, and channel it towards that. Channel your emotion, um, your negative emotion or your challenging emotion, your sadness, whatever it is, in that direction. And that'll help you get out of the hole that you feel like you might be in.
That's amazing stuff. And if we take all of that advice to heart and actually implement it, I think when we're happily retired, wherever our happy retirement place is, and we're looking back at ourselves, it's not with any regret. So I think if you want to be a little selfish about it, do you want regret or don't you want regret? Do the work today.
It's true. I mean, do you want to be on the team or do you not? you know, do you want to do everything that you can, or do you not? Like, there really are decision points that you have control over. Like, there's a lot of things that happen outside of, in every situation, that you don't have control over. This you do. You do. And so sometimes you're like yearning for that, because you're like, oh, I can't control an injury. You know, you say you can't control coach's decision, but you really can by doing the work, trying to improve. But at the end of the day, the coach is going to make a decision. And as long as you know you've invested everything and you've done everything that you can, you should be able to handle that decision, even if it's something different than what you wanted, and then you handle it positively, and then you get back to work. Then you get back to work, after that. And so it's very, very true, like, they're decision points. And so which way are you going to go? You
Ex-
get to decide that.
Exactly. Tracey, it was great meeting you. It was great having this chat with you. Very appreciative that you agreed
You're
to do
welcome.
this with me. And I had a great time.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Hopefully, we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.